Hello again, how you doing? I'm Nick Hennegan, Artistic Director of the Maverick Theatre Company. This is How to Make a Crisis Out of a Drama, a stream of consciousness diary that I wrote in 1997. It was a weird summer for us, and 2020 has been a weird summer for most of the world. So I felt there was a sort of synergy into going back and reading these diaries out for you now. Someone did email me. Yes, they are available as a book, and there are photos in it. I suppose I could try and put the photos on here, but I think that would take too long. And anyway, spend £4 on a book. It'll help fund the art, comrade. So, without further ado, let's go back to 1997. Monday the 28th of July, 97, 6:30 p.m. As John Slater predicted, the press reception for A Ghost of a Chance went very well. I was unsure up to the last minute how it would go, but we had a better turnout than I expected. It was a fascinating day for a number of reasons, not least of which was the fact I've seen a slightly different side of the press after today. You hear stories about tabloid gutter journalism, and now I've experienced it a bit. It's the first press call I've ever done, and the call for the press was 1 p.m. At the pub, the Billesley pub, we'd arranged for a buffet for 20 people and held the reception in the round room. In attendance would be Paul Henry, Justin Luke Towler and me as the turns. John Slater made the valid point, by the way, that I should be the writer for this event rather than the producer. Another case of split identity, but he's quite right, of course. Crewing the actual event would be John Slater, Danny Parr, the lovely stage manager from Up and Under, a real talent she is, and obviously Anthea Towler as Justin's legal chaperone. My girlfriend Rebs had offered to help as barmaid. She was up from London from drama school for a few days, but we had a reception for her friend Sarah. It was a wedding at the Royal Shakespeare Company's Stratford-on-Avon Garden. Sarah works for the RSC. Dingley Dell it's called. It was on Sunday, and she had celebrated her friend's wedding so hard she was in a rather delicate state this morning. She said she'd still come and help, but she sounded so tired I didn't have the heart to drag her out to the Billesley. So the rest of us were all called for 12:30, although Slater and I arrived at around midday to get the room ready. Paul, the assistant manager from Portugal at the Billesley, who's doing a great job running the pub, while Tony Egan, the manager, is away getting married, laid on some wine, beer and orange juice on a sale or return basis. I asked Danny Parr, who would be hosting, not to open any wine unless she was asked. Paul did a great job on the buffet. We knew food for 20 people would be a bit excessive, but as this was the first press call we'd ever done, I wanted things to look as impressive as possible. When the room was ready at about 12:45, Justin, Paul and myself went downstairs into the bar and sat up a corner. I bought us all a drink. I asked Justin what he wanted. "A Coke, please, or half a Guinness," he replied with a smile. He had a Coke, and I thought, yeah, this kid'll be all right. The three of us sat chatting, then as previously arranged, John Slater came down at about 1:05 to tell us everyone was there and ready. Not having done this sort of thing before, we thought we should try a short, formal opening statement and then allow questions, like a proper press conference. Slater thought it would be better if the turns, well, Paul anyway, were not in the room until the formal bit started, and it actually worked very well. So the three of us walked into the round room, and I was surprised at the turnout. There were around 30 journalists and photographers sitting in the seats laid out for Up and Under's performance later on that night. The three of us stood by the buffet table. I felt a bit of a lemon, so I had an orange juice. Slater started with a welcoming chat, then turned it over to me. Strangely, I hadn't really thought about what to say, and I found myself stumbling a bit. I explained how the pub theatre started, how the play came about, and how Paul Henry came to be involved. I explained how we found Justin, and that we'd auditioned around 200 kids. As I say the word kids, for some illogical reason, I suddenly remember something from my own kidhood. At home in Hollybank Road in Birmingham, every time someone on the TV or radio referred to kids, my mum would say, "Kids? A kid is a baby goat." Illogical, but in deference to Justin, I find myself saying young adults. Bizarre, baby. It's quite a strange experience as well to see a bunch of attentive journalists hanging on your every word and scribbling notes when you say something factual. Paul and Justin moved to some seats opposite the press pack. Nice to be able to say that. And sat down. I waffled on a bit more and then asked if there were any questions. Carol Beck, who used to be with the Birmingham Evening Mail and is now with the News Team Agency, asked what the play was all about. Oops! Almost forgot. Thank you, Carol. I told them briefly and then handed back to Slater. John drew the formal bit to a close and said if anyone would like to talk to any of the performers, please feel free to do so now. Whoosh! 20 journalists rush across the room and descend on Paul. It looked almost like a religious event. Paul, sitting in his chair, surrounded on all sides by his disciples, who were holding notebooks and hanging on his every word, throwing the odd question. I decided I've had enough of being a turn and slipped my producer hat back on. I checked to see where Justin is. He's with his mom, so that's okay. I've decided I'm going to take my responsibility as child licence holder seriously. Although Justin lives in Solihull, so he's with Solihull Council, but Birmingham Council very helpfully sent me a huge tome of information about what holding a licence for a child performer involves. I've not yet ploughed through it all, but I will. I return to Paul Henry and hang around. He looks at me occasionally for confirmation, and I gladly oblige. I find I'm starting to really like Paul. I've actually known Paul Henry from a distance for many years. As a kid, I was in the Birmingham Scouts gang show, which was a tremendous event at the Birmingham Hippodrome. It ran for a week every year, was a huge part of my late childhood. It was also audacious. Birmingham County Scouts hired the Birmingham Hippodrome, a 2,000-seater venue with one of the biggest stage houses in Europe, and they used to sell out. And I'll tell you more about that in the next episode, including my brush with television and a condom machine.